Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first Creating Sanctuaries of Learning newsletter. This newsletter is designed to bring you the tools, resources, and insights you've been asking for. Now, a key theme that keeps coming up in my work with schools is student engagement. What does it look like? How do we enhance it? And how do we sustain it? And one of the research you've all fallen in love with is Dr. Amy Berry, and I'm thrilled to have her with us today. Amy has over 20 years of experience in education as a teacher, researcher, and professional learning facilitator. She began her career as a primary school teacher in Queensland before developing a deep passion for research. She's currently an honorary fellow at the Melbourne Graduate School of Education, and Amy's research focuses on student engagement in learning, curriculum and pedagogy, and teacher professional learning. Amy has kindly agreed to collaborate with me on our new Driving School-Wide Engagement series, where we'll be speaking with both her and school leaders and teachers who are championing this work. We're also fortunate to have Chris Carey, Principal of Jules Primary School in Lake Macquarie, New South Wales, joining us today to share first-hand insights on how her school has been driving student engagement. Now, one of Chris's many strengths is her ability to build the capacity of her staff, ensuring that they're well equipped to meet challenges in the classroom. She has fostered a culture of personalised professional learning, which I have witnessed firsthand, of collective efficacy and a deep understanding of the key drivers of student achievement. We also are joined by Louise Phelan Davis, Stage 2 Assistant Principal, who has been instrumental in developing engagement strategies within Stage 2 as a pilot before establishing systems for a school-wide rollout. So it'll be great to hear from Louise. And of course, we have Sarah Burdenshaw, the Assistant Principal Curriculum and Instruction. And Sarah plays a crucial role in supporting her teachers to meet each student at their point of need, while also building staff capacity to identify and analyze strong data sources to drive learning. So it's a great team. I hope you find today's conversation both insightful and inspiring. Yay! All right. So, Amy, I just want to ask you first, what does student engagement really mean beyond just participation?
Well, that's a hard question, but it's a question that we need to ask more often because generally it's something that we just assume everybody understands and knows and agrees upon. And that's probably one of the reasons that I first came to my research is my experience in school told me that everybody cares about engagement, or at least seems to care about it, but nobody ever talks about what that means. And you could see that people had very different ideas about what this means. Somebody would come to me and explain how their lesson was, so engaging, super engaging. The kids were really engaged. But then when they started to describe it, I would think, that doesn't really match what I would think of when I think of the kids being really, super engaged. So the seeds were planted back then. When I think of engagement, the first thing that I think we need to be clear about is the difference between being engaged in school, the sort of social institution that is school, versus being engaged in learning, in the process of learning. And yes, these two things are connected, but they're not the same thing. So I can be very engaged in what happens at school and the people who are with me at school, but that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily very engaged in learning or making much progress in my learning. So we need to, one, be clear about what we're looking at. And my work in particular focuses on learner engagement. What does it mean to be engaged in the process of learning? And so for me, it's very much about the I get the kinds of things that the learner can do and does do to help themselves learn and make progress in the learning. And so it's very much an active choice by the student about the things that they're going to do. But it does range in levels of action, I suppose. We have passive forms of engaging, so I'm still there, ready and ready for learning, I guess, open to learning at the participating level. But I'm at that level where I need somebody else, or I want somebody else to take the lead for me. I'm not ready to take the lead myself, and so I'm looking for someone else, often the teacher, to lead my learning for me. But I'm open to following along. And then we move on to the more active forms of investing and driving, where their confidence is up, their belief in their capacity to succeed and take risks and take on challenges is up. And that enables them to become more actively engaged in their learning.
So a lot in it, a lot more than maybe we think of when we first hear the term student engagement. Can I ask Chris, Louise, and Sarah your thoughts on, what made you, I guess, engage with Amy's research on engagement? What got you excited about her work?
I suppose for me, engagement is something that comes up in our school excellence plans regularly. And it's really drilling down into what that means for us as a school. So, as part of our instructional rounds, we had a focus on learning intentions and success criteria. And through those conversations, as an instructional rounds team, it clarified for me that unless students know how to engage in learning and what that looks like, and they have a clear framework about that, as do our staff have a clear framework of what engagement actually looks like for learning, then learning intentions and success criteria won't have the impact that we know that they can. So we stepped back from that and went right back in that we need engaged learners that understand learning and themselves as learning to drive their engagement with things like success criteria and the explicit teaching that was going on in classrooms. So it's been a very slow process for us, but we've gone very narrow and deep to ensure that what we're trying to embed across our school is the best that we can be doing for our staff and our students. And I know Lou took that on very much as part of that original instructional rounds team, and we worked together to unpack what that might look like. And she did a lot of thinking in that space and trialed lots of things with her team. So Lou, would you like to sort of add?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that when we did the instructional rounds and another school was looking at student engagement and you first introduced us to that Amy Berry model, it was kind of like this huge light bulb moment for me, because it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, my kids are participating in my classroom because they are completing the activities. And I'm assuming that that means they're engaged, but actually they're not, because they're not really inquiring or self-driving it or pushing them, reflecting on where they're at and trying to push themselves onto the next level. So it was a real sort of light bulb moment where I really wanted to look deeply into how I could facilitate that more in the classroom, giving students more voice and more authority over actually what they're learning and how they're learning and where their learning journey is going and how that matches what they actually need on an individual basis. So yeah, just that first session was just like a huge light bulb moment. Yeah, it was really powerful.
And I think what we've seen across the school is that students are now better able to give us constructive feedback on how our teachers are operating in the classroom and meeting their needs. And I know,
just saying they're brutal.
Yeah,
their teacher feedback is brutal.
Honest. They're honest.
Yeah, but I think that's important and that's powerful, because at the end of the day, we want them to be engaged. Where are we going wrong as educators to get them that? And you have to accept that feedback.
Yeah.
But you have to accept it, and we have to change the way we teach in order to support them and their needs.
Now, Louise, I'd love to know, I know that you were a real champion of this work, very excited. How did you go from seeing Amy Berry's model like on a screen and having conversations at IR to actually having a go and trying implementing things in your classroom and then with your stage team?
Yeah, I think we really we looked at it as a stage. We discussed it as a stage. It was very collaborative. It wasn't me just going, haha, let's do this. And I think we were very fortunate in the sense that Chris sent us to instructional rounds as a stage team. So we all received the same professional learning and same discussions. And so that was really powerful for us. But just sort of recognizing as well that it is so multi-layered, the actual process of it. Like you can't just go in and go, ta-da, we're going to do the engagement model today, and I expect you to be sitting here. Like we really had to think about how our classrooms were set up, were our expectations strong and robust in the classroom? Were we consistent with how we are dealing with those expectations? And then from that, we slowly built up from there to start looking at the engagement model. So we broke it down into child-friendly language, and we explicitly taught it to the kids through lots of role modeling, which was fun, and discussion based. And they've made so many posters about it and sorting activities and all of those things so that they could have a really clear understanding of where they sat on what each component of that engagement scale looks like. So that's where we sort of started, and then we started to get them to sort of predict, well, where would you like to be today on that engagement scale model? I'd like to be, they all want to be driving, of course. Oh, yeah, I love your ambition, but what is that actually going to look like in a classroom? You know? And then we'd get them to reflect at the end of the lesson, right? You said you wanted to be driving. We said driving would look like X, Y, Z. Did you hit that? Did you hit that criteria? Well, yes or no. And if it was no, well, let's look at what investing would have looked like today in this. Did you do that? Did you hit that? And it's been a whole process of really unpacking it, getting them to think about it, and they've been involved in it from the get-go. The kids have been amazing, and then getting them to be honest and reflective about where they sit on the engagement scale, and then me being reflective as to, we had one lesson the once, oh my God, it was a horrendous lesson, and we all have them, and the majority of the kids put themselves at avoiding, and I knew it was an awful lesson, and I reflected on it, and I, you know, made peace with myself. I forgave myself, and you know, went on to sort of build on that for the next lesson. But the first discussion at the start of the lesson was, why was such a high percentage of people on avoiding yesterday? What happened in that lesson? Was it me? Was it you? Was it something that was happening outside the classroom that I couldn't control? And we had this big discussion around what it was. And, you know, initially they were uncomfortable about critiquing me, but it's like, well, no, I critique you all the time. I tell you what you need to do to improve. You need to tell me what I need to improve, and what was wrong with that lesson. And so they told me what was wrong with it. And then at the end of the lesson, virtually everyone was on investing, and they were like, well done, that was so much better today. I was like, yay, thanks team, it's amazing. So yeah, so giving them power and giving them voice alone has increased engagement in the room. Totally. Really,
that's such a good example of the idea of partnership, that this really is a partnership between the teacher and the learner. And that's a very difficult thing for teachers to get their head around. I think that they're open to it, and they understand it on one level. Yes, of course. But it's hard. It's very hard as a teacher to open yourself up and change the way that you think about teaching and learning so that it is more of a partnership. And I'm curious now, what was the issue that sent them all on the avoiding pathway?
Oh, it was, I hadn't resourced it properly, because the lesson had gone off on a segue, and they were like, well, we didn't have enough resources to do what you wanted us to do. You know, the way that you grouped us wasn't really a fair way to group us. And I was like, yeah, no, I took on that reflection as well. But they were really honest in their reflection. They didn't just say, oh, it was rubbish. It was like, well, no, actually, you didn't give us enough equipment to do that. You didn't put us in the right groups that was going to be beneficial to our learning. And yeah, it was just really, really powerful.
That is so powerful because now, you're describing a situation where now your learners have kind of leveled up in terms of the skills that they bring to the partnership and their ability to pinpoint, not only, yeah, I'm avoiding, but why, and what would I need to be able to get engaged. And that is the beginnings of helping them to manage and regulate the inevitable times of demotivation and disengagement that are going to happen. It happens for all of us. So our goal when we are trying to develop confident and successful and effective drivers is not that they sit in driving all the time, but they are so skillful that they are able to, I think of it like a highway. They're able to change lanes. They know when to do that, how to do that, why they do that, including how they get themselves back on the engagement highway when they found themselves on the side road of disengagement, So I think it's so powerful, such a great story.
Yeah.
I love the vulnerability, Lou, and the self-compassion.
Been there.
All
my voices where it's falling apart. But another thing that's been like really powerful is that we always are giving the students our expectations. This is what we expect. We want you to sign off on this contract. But since this kind of whole instructional round vision, part of it now is that they give me their expectations and I have a contract that I have to sign to say that I am going to do this to be a good teacher, and they pull me up on it. That they're like, one of them is, you're supposed to treat us all equally, and they'll say, well, you spoke to such and such differently to the way you spoke to me, and I need to know why. Like, they've become quite entitled, which is really quite scary. But they're holding me to account in the same way that I am holding them to account. And not that we're equals in the classroom, of course we're not, but I think that's really powerful for them to feel that sense of belonging and that sense of connection, to make it a powerful and constructive classroom and learning environment. It's really strong. And something else we've run alongside that is the student voice survey that we run every term, asking them about, do you understand why your learning is important? Do you have someone that you connect with in the school that you can go to if you're struggling? Do you know how to get help if you're not sure how to complete an activity? And like you were saying, Amy, and we convert it to percentages, and we have the term 1% up, and then the term 2 and the term 3 and the term 4% to see the growth or the dips. And for some teachers, that is confronting. They might only get 30% of kids that feel like they've got someone that they can talk to, but it's about them then reflecting and turning it around and thinking, well why? What can I do to improve? What am I missing? Because that sense of belonging and connection is just so vital in classrooms now. If you haven't got that connection, then you're fighting a huge battle.
I'd love to hear, Sarah, if there's anything you'd like to add in terms of, how do we support our
I'm going to shut up.
Louise is doing teachers to implement, Amy's great work in our classrooms in your role as an instructional leader.
Look, I think Louise is doing an amazing job with her initial stage 2 team, and we sort of have brought that on board with the whole K to 6 now. So Lou led that way with stage 2 quite early last year, set up a lot of those practices. But now I think the biggest thing for us is about that consistency.
Yeah.
Making sure that, what Lou's driven in that stage 2 team has the same expectations as what kindergarten are using and what stage 3 are using. So the same vocab, the same language, the same delivery of those, expectations. That's our big sort of rock that we're working towards now, because we've got it almost right, almost perfect in stage 2. Now it's getting that big picture across the whole school.
But I do have to give you a shout out in the sense that the year threes that have come up this year from from stage 1 to stage 2, they have got a really good basic knowledge of it for already and what it means and how it looks in the classroom. So we're just unpacking that and expanding that further, but the basic foundations are there, which makes it easier, because obviously we've got the year 4s that were with us last year that are like, rocking and rolling and all over it and critiquing me like there's no tomorrow, and the year 3s are like, what the? You can say that to her? It's like anything, as long as it's said respectfully, everyone can give feedback to everybody.
And like Chris said, I think before, about getting it, but doing it slowly and making sure we're getting it right first up. So Lou, by modelling it in stage 2, she sort of, found all those hiccups where we thought, things may have, needed a little bit more interpretation or needed some more work. We've now also included a strong start week at the beginning of every term for K to 6 to set those high expectations, to go over those engagements. So, every year from kindergarten all the way to year 6 has that start week where, we're going over those engagement norms, we're setting those expectations. So again, the language is clear across the whole school. Expectations are clear, teachers are clear, students are clear.
Yeah. And linked to the engagement model as well, we've got Fenton. So Fenton is our school mascot. And Fenton is an emu. So they have, the aim is for the students to get into Fenton's nest. So to get into Fenton's nest, we unpacked what driving looked like, and they came up with, we came up with an acronym for Fenton, which was focus, for, being focused on what you're learning, endurance. Okay, so I was a little bit liberal with the N. Initiative, teamwork, ownership. And I think ownership is such a huge thing for kids nowadays, because they've just got that perfection mindset. So making mistakes, and it's okay, it's all good. How do we learn from that? How do we improve? And that enthusiasm for learning as well. So if we see those traits, which they should have when they're driving, they get to tick the letter, and then when they get 3 letters, they get a stamp, and then when they get the whole of Fenton's name, they get to go in the nest. So that's really driving them too. It's about having lots of strategies. It's like having that real holistic approach of everything coming together, setting your expectations, 2-way, having their student voice strong and valued, and giving them that incentive of what things look like, so it's achievable for them.
And I think as a whole school, as a staff, we're having those conversations about what does our behaviour management system look like, because the big change has been those conversations in our classrooms. So we've had a lot less of that low-level disruption in our classrooms to deal with. And I think that comes back to the fact that we've been very intentional about the way that we have supported staff through implementation. So we haven't rushed it. It's been a conversation where staff understand, teachers understand why we're doing it and the background behind it. And there's been a lot of support. We haven't necessarily changed everything all at once, but as a natural flow through, it's now flowing through into the conversations that we have with students about their engagement in the classroom and the impact of going onto that sideline that is disengagement, and the impact on them and their learning and everyone else and their learning. So for me, it's sort of that first thing in getting that really strong learning culture inside our school, that everyone is on. We push information out to parents, and that'll be a bit of a focus this year on bringing parents on board, because it is now embedded across our school. and all staff are using that language. And the kids certainly ask me if I'm avoiding when I walk into their classroom.
No.
Well, I do both. So it's really lovely little banter between the adults in our setting and the kids in our setting, and that value of what a good learner looks like.
So
And
Amy,
I've heard similar responses from other schools where they get to a point where they suddenly reflect and realize, oh, I'm really not redirecting for behavior anymore. Whenever I'm redirecting something, it's about learning. It's redirecting them using the continuum and this language that we've developed about learning rather than nagging kids about their behavior.
Yeah.
I'm finding that a lot of schools that who are adopting your work, Amy, it is supporting their students' well-being. This is
Yes.
starting to kind of overhaul their PBL and their expectation, their typical ways of managing behavior. And it is focusing on the learning, which is why I think schools love your research. Now, we've heard Jules Primary School's story, and from our discussion before this interview, Amy, you mentioned there were some building blocks schools could think about in terms of starting their journey with engagement. Do you want to share what you believe those are?
Yeah, I think in terms of three fundamental building blocks that we need to attend to get this work going. The first one is around language, developing a better language for engagement in the classroom and across the school. Currently, most schools, the language is limited to 2 words, engagement and disengagement. So your kids are either engaged or they're disengaged. Or we might talk about they're really engaged or they're really disengaged, but it is just 2 words. So that's not that helpful if we want to have meaningful conversations about this. So the continuum has proved to be a useful basis for our new language for engagement. And it helps to give us a better sense of what we are trying to achieve. So there is some clarity and consensus around the vision of supporting our learners to become, strong and capable drivers of learning. So that's the first step. We have to get on the same page about what we're trying to achieve and what we're talking about, and get into the habit of having regular conversations about it using this new language. That's building block number 1. That's generally where most people start, and it makes sense. We have to have a language to talk about these things. The second one is this idea of partnership, that engagement is not what I call secret teacher business. It's not something that teachers are doing to kids or for them, but it is something that we do together in partnership. And we've heard some, great examples of that from Louise today. So we have to be on this journey together with them. We have to invite them in on the conversations, and we can do that as we start building this language and this vision. So inviting their input as we bring the continuum to life in a meaningful way for the context that you're working in. And, as Louise described, we really walk the talk in terms of this partnership. It's about seeing yourself as a learner as well and modeling what it is we want them to do. So however uncomfortable it is, we try to embrace that, because that's what we're asking them to do. We're asking them to be uncomfortable on a daily basis as they stretch themselves and take risks and try to grow and learn. So we need to be able to show them that we're going to do that too. So that's the second building block. And the third one is, how do we embed this as a part of our daily teaching and learning process? How do we bring this to life so that it's not just an add-on on the side or something that we only do in the first week of the year and then we don't never touch it again, but it is something that is happening all day, every day across the school.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I can hear a lot of alignment between those building blocks and Jules Primary story.
Yeah.
And the fact that, your conversations, Chris, you were mentioning the partnership and how they've been really strategic. They started with a stage team. They were so excited in that team, and that kind of that it grew like a virus, I guess, and other teams were started to get interested. So I was really excited to have Jules Primary join us today. Chris, Louise, Sarah, did you have any questions you wanted to ask Dr. Amy? Or any comments you'd like to share at this point?
Thank you.
I'll give you a moment to think, because I do have an observation, and if I don't say it now, then I'll forget. But one thing that really stuck in my mind that I think has been pivotal probably in your success is the respect and the care and the support that you've given to your staff. Unfortunately, in teacher professional learning, often what happens is we sort of take everything that we know about supporting learners and we throw it out the window, and we just say, here it is, here's the new thing, go off and do it. And we expect that they're robots or something, they can just run with it. But you've really acknowledged and understood that this is a process of growth and learning and improvement for the teachers. And so they need time. They need time to develop their capacity. They need time to develop their motivation for it, their confidence in it, their readiness to take risks and try things out. And it sounds like you've been very successful in supporting that and allowing people the time that they need to learn and change.
That's nice. I agree with that. That's why, I'm so happy to have this team with us today. Chris has been very strategic in the team she first brought to instructional rounds, and the way you've supported them, Chris, with the time, the resources, and the commitment to personalized professional learning for your staff is really rare, quite rare. So I applaud you. And just going into classrooms and actually seeing, teachers talking about the engagement model. You talking about Fenton, joining Fenton's mob. I can see it happening. It's not just a nice poster on the wall. So I think you should be really proud of yourselves, team.
Thank you.
I think I want to thank you all, Amy, Chris, Louise, and Sarah, for sharing your insights and experiences today. It's clear that meaningful student engagement isn't just about participating. It's really about fostering, the deep, purposeful learning experiences, really partnering with students, having conversations, and caring deeply for our staff, it sounds like. So to everyone viewing, we would love to hear your thoughts. What resonated most with you from our conversation today? Feel free to reach out to me, to any of us, about what topics you'd like us to explore next. And if you don't know, Amy has a book called Reimagining Student Engagement from Disrupting to Driving, which you should definitely check out. It's really, I think, an easy read, and it just makes sense. You have a lot of aha moments. Please also join her engagement hub, which is free at the moment, right, Amy?
Yes,
So I'm going to include a link. Or do you want to talk about that, Amy? And a QR code so you can join?
Yeah, I mean, the idea behind the Engagement Hub is, as I said before, this concept of engagement as a partnership is really pivotal and really important in all of this work, and it's hard. And so as teachers who are trying to go through this change, we need to make sure that we have a network of engagement partners as well, because we're learning. So, and learners, drivers understand the value of having a good network of partners, go-to people, I call them. And so I understood that some people are in the fortunate position of being in a school community where they have a big network of go-to people and support people. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's an individual teacher on their own trying to do this all by themselves, which is really hard when you're on your own. And even when you are in a whole school community that's all on board, there's value in expanding your network beyond your bubble of your school and hearing about how other schools are doing it. And so with that in mind, I thought, well, how can I connect people that I'm connected with so that they can learn from each other and support each other? And the best way that I could think of to do that was to create an online community for educators which we've called the Engagement Hub. And my daughter, who just turned 30, has helped me to put this together. I've put her skills to good use. We've been good engagement partners for each other. And it really is designed to be a place where you can come and do lots of things. We're calling it the one-stop shop for engagement. So you can come and join the conversation corner and have interactions with other educators, throw out questions, share some success stories, whatever it is. I've got a blog there. We have stories from the wild, and I would love to really share your story and put it together like a little stories from the wild case study, because people love those. And then there are a bunch of resources and templates and things that you can access. And we have a university section where we will be running some online courses and masterclasses. So that is what the Engagement Hub is, and I would love to see you all there, joining in the conversations and sharing your stories.
Yay. So I'm going to include that in the newsletter with some links. And Lou, if it's okay, would you mind sharing with some resources you wouldn't mind me sharing with other schools to help them start out on their
Yeah.
journey? Yay.
Sharing and lightening the load.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks everyone for your time today. I hope everyone viewing has enjoyed this, and I can't wait to do more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.